All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. My name is Zachary Mallory, and I am the host and the founder of the Rise Above Justice Movement and the Rise Above Justice Movement, the podcast. All right. So today I am joined by Karishma, who is running for the U.S. Senate, and we're going to talk about the reason why this is a race that all of us should be watching. This is a deeply important one that even I'm watching from here in Kansas because this is a very, very prominent election that I will be watching until the very end. But with that being said, welcome to the podcast, first of all. And then secondly, thank you for running. I know it's not easy. I know it's expensive. I know it's time consuming. I know it's a lot, but in the end, it's worth it. And this is one that can absolutely be won.
Thank you so much, Zachary. Thank you to you. Thank you to the listeners. Yes, it's an absolute winnable race. I'm a scientist, Zachary. I had to think through the pros and cons, and like you said, we are running a shoestring campaign. This is a true grassroots campaign based heavily on volunteers, hardly any money. And so it's just like the a will and a cause, and absolutely, and it is winnable. So, and the passion is there, the energy is there. So, but thank you so much, Zachary, for having me on your show.
Absolutely. You have some incredible endorsements, and we'll dive into why you're running for office. But I want to name some of these endorsements, Citizens Against APAC Corruption, Peace Action, New Hampshire Peace Action, Progressive Victory, Alliance of South Asian American Labor, and Organize for Peace. These are endorsements and these are organizations like obviously that I completely endorse myself. These are organizations that are literally fighting tooth and nail every single day to get progressive candidates elected at all levels of office, because every single election matters, all the way down to your water board, to your city council, to your local sheriff. I didn't realize that until we had a very problematic sheriff in my area that we voted out. And he went on like a whole like anti-trans tangent and went on like this whole like wild things that, a sheriff shouldn't be focused on necessarily, right? I mean, let's be real, 2% of an entire population and you target it directly, like that's not exactly where we should be at. And, at that time was 2024. But thinking about everything going on, I would love for you to just give a backstory and dive into who you are, your background, and why you're running for the US Senate.
So thank you so much, Zachary. So there are so many aspects to my life, right? So I'm going to just touch on a few, and hopefully over the course of the conversation, we can get into a little bit more. So I'm a scientist. I live in the small town of Exeter with my husband, my two children, and I've been working in the science field for about 20 years. I have a PhD in biochemistry, molecular biology, and I've been working in clinical research, specifically focusing on epilepsy and depression. And I loved my job because that was an opportunity to improve people's lives. Even though clinical research takes a long time, there are many people involved. I was playing my small role in that process, but it was wonderful to do that work. I also got very heavily involved in the nonprofit sector here in New Hampshire. So I serve on the board of a couple of organizations. Okay, I'll just name them because they're so important. Open Democracy Action, and we have been trying to get big money out of politics, out of New Hampshire politics and out of our federal races for a long time. I'm also on the board of New Hampshire Ranked Choice Voting because that wonderful piece of legislation, my God, we need that across the country, but definitely in our state to give voters more power in the democratic process. And I used to be on the board of New Hampshire Peace Action, but that is the only one I resigned from just before the campaign started because I was like, okay, 3 board memberships, 1 campaign, still a family that I want to see once in a while. It was going to be just too much. So, but I'm very involved with the Peace Action. We are, that is like my heart, my soul, all that work, because we have to move away from the war economy. So both in my nonprofit sector work as well as my science work, I was working to help improve people's lives. Still, I kept seeing so much death and destruction across the world based on foreign policy positions that are really not aligned with our values, as well as domestic policies that are really hurting our families, housing crisis, healthcare crisis, childcare crisis, you name it. So I'm running for the United States Senate to continue my work and to help improve people's lives.
Mhm. Yeah. And, it brings us into my first talking point is about the influence of money in politics. Your opponent is no stranger to this, and we'll dive into that here in just a second. I know you want to laugh. Feel free to laugh because it's important to talk about this. But money in politics and how it leads into people and or like elected officials and how it influences their decisions and their policy making, right? So let's talk about money in politics. What does this look like from your perspective? The 2010, and I talk about this with like every candidate that I'm interviewing for this, is if you're older than 2010, you're older than Citizens United versus FEC. If you're older than 2003, you're older than DHS. These are very important things to talk about. It hasn't always looked as it does now, but Citizens United paved the way for more corruption, big donors, APAC, the fossil fuel industry. We see a lot of like oligarchs and tech bros, and you see like all of this stuff like influencing these decisions. You have lobbyist groups, you have, oh God, we can go deep into this, but thinking about money in politics, what does it look like to you and what do you propose as far as taking those steps to get money out of politics?
Just think about the depth of your voice when you're talking about it. Like behind those words that you just said, you can see the gravity of the problem. It's amazing. We have basically, as American people, we're allowing money to control our politicians. And then we're surprised why the government is not working for us anymore. We have like I said, a housing crisis, a childcare crisis, a healthcare crisis. These are manufactured problems because too many of our lawmakers are answering to the donors and not to the people. This is exactly the problem. The money in politics is hurting us here at home in Kansas and New Hampshire, across the country. And we have to basically say, we need to step up. This cannot be allowed. This is bribery. We should not call these donations anymore. Donations is like whitewashing what is going on. Literally bribery. Whether it's big oil or big pharma or APAC or big tech, crypto, name it. They are bribing our lawmakers and controlling them to get the votes that they need.
Again, your opponent is no stranger to this.
My opponent is no stranger to this. He has taken somewhere around 2.7 million, we don't know the exact number yet, from APAC, American Israel Public Affairs Committee. You see that influence in all his votes. He has voted to approve billions of dollars of weapons transfers to Israel before October 7th and still, because he is owned by APAC. The 2.7 million becomes a big number. Let me give you guys an idea what that means. In 2024, in the middle of the famine in Gaza, there were 2 attempts in the House to restart humanitarian aid to Gaza. Chris Pappas, my opponent, voted against the bills to restart humanitarian aid to Gaza. Around the time of his first vote, plus minus a few days, he received about $110,000 from APAC. The second vote, plus minus a few days, he received $115,000 from APAC. Do you know how much it takes to buy Chris Pappas's vote? It's about $110,000. That's what we're talking about. The insanity that you can give this man $110,000 and in return, he will vote to not provide humanitarian aid to babies in the middle of a famine. He is willing to starve children for money. And then I hear on the campaign trail some people who don't understand what's going on in his record because they say, oh, you know, Chris Pappas is a nice man. Starving children is not nice. Bombing children is not nice. Taking money to serve a foreign nation is not nice. No, that kind of imaginary idea, that sort of persona that is marketed is a lie. He takes money to serve a foreign genocidal government, period.
Yep, 100%. Absolutely. And thank you for talking about that because yesterday, he introduced a, quote, bipartisan bill, and this is directly off of his website, which for those of you who don't know, Chris currently serves as New Hampshire's first congressional district uh, elected official, like congressman. But he put on his website as a press release that he introduced bipartisan bill to strengthen ethical standards in Congress. It is titled Clean Legislating and Ethical Accountability Now, aka the Clean Act, would permanently authorize the OCC so that this watchdog can conduct the oversight Americans deserve, no matter who controls Congress. This is literally contradicts his votes, first of all. Secondly, oh God, I could pop in on this because, like you said, he's taken millions of dollars in APAC funding, and he's not the only one. He's not the only one.
90, I think out of the senators, I think 93 out of the 100 receive it. Of the House, I forget the
It's
number,
quite
but
a
I think
bit.
it's over 80-90% of the full Congress
Yes,
receives money from APAC. But that
yes.
particular bill, I didn't see that the wording of that one, so I cannot answer specifically to that one. But what is happening is Chris Pappas has never been challenged. He has just been like cruising through the primary election process for the last several years. He is beatable. He has just never been challenged. Because I'm challenging him, suddenly he's starting to act like a candidate, somewhat, a little bit controlled candidate. He is introducing a lot of bills. Oh, lower the gas prices, lower the grocery prices, or whatever it is, ethics rules. First of all, why are you doing it now? Why didn't you do it for the last 7.5 years, right? The other is, okay, maybe the gas prices are just going up, but ethics rules, ethics problems have been there for 7.5 years. But check those legislative bills. Many of them don't have a single co-sponsor. It is just a marketing ploy, just so that here in New Hampshire on Facebook and on the TV, it'll be announced, Congressman Chris Pappas proposes a bill or introduces a bill, and people will think, oh, he's trying to lower the gas prices. Oh, he's trying to do this. They will not. I mean, who has the time to look up the legislative record? Is anyone co-sponsoring it? Did it move to the next step? Is it going to pass? People will just have the image, Pappas tried to lower, and that's it. That's all they need. That's all they need. This is all a smoke screen. This is, Zachary, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to hold these people accountable. It's so much marketing is going on, millions of dollars worth of marketing. DC consultants are flooding in. How do we make him look like a legitimate public servant when he's not? It's a lot of work. Yeah, but they have the millions to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And the cost of living continues to increase.
Yes.
The last time it's been literally decades since the federal poverty level, kept up with inflation
Mm-hmm.
and endless wars, etc. So thinking about the cost of living, this hits New Hampshire because it's a relatively smaller state, so it hits pretty hard, and it has a lot of influences like around it, like the East Coast. Think about all those, Massachusetts and New York and like DC, and like it's all in that like area. So thinking about that, thinking about the cost of living, what are you hearing from people on the ground? And whenever you're canvassing, you're getting out, talking at events, what are some of those concerns that you're hearing about from your constituents or your uh, future constituents?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you're going to do this, I feel it. But
Yes.
thinking about that, what are you hearing?
Mm-hmm. So that is such a huge issue. So let me see if I can, several thoughts are in my head, and I'm just going to see if I can address each of them point by point. One is a state like ours does not have a state minimum wage. So we default to the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour since 2009. Literally, there are people in our state who are making $7.25 an hour. Of course, people will talk about the McDonald's in New Hampshire. If you work at McDonald's, you might make 15, 16, $17 an hour. Even that is not a livable wage. But people say, oh, we don't need a state minimum wage because people make 16, $17 an hour. No, actually, there are people in New Hampshire who make $7.25 an hour. But those, even at $17, those are not livable wages. The housing costs have skyrocketed in New Hampshire. It costs anywhere from about $1,500, $1,800 to $2,000 for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, if you can find it, because inventory is extremely low. So if you are leaving your apartment thinking, you want to move to another location, it is very difficult. So what am I hearing? That our wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. Housing is unaffordable. Healthcare, many people do not have access to healthcare, and because of the subsidies, ACA subsidies were not renewed, many people have lost health insurance in New Hampshire. And childcare is a huge problem. Many parents who would like to go back to work can't find childcare, and if they can find it, they can't afford it. It is a terrible situation. All around us, the other New England states, the minimum wages are higher, like $15, $16 an hour. We are the only one stuck at $7.25. So a lot of folks, what they are doing is they're just leaving the state. The young folks, what are they going to do? They're moving to Maine, they're moving to Massachusetts, and sometimes they're moving across the country a little bit to Indiana and other places. When I talk to those folks who are getting ready to move, and I ask them, are you moving by choice? And they say no. Their family's here. They would rather live in New Hampshire, but they just cannot find a job that pays well enough for them to be able to afford housing or food or healthcare, or they have a job, but they cannot afford to rent a place or buy a place. It is a real issue. So affordability problem is huge on the minds of folks. And now with gas prices going up, that's causing additional problems. And the food costs didn't come down. I want to talk about another thing, but I'll pause because if you want to ask a question, or if you want me to say something very specific to New Hampshire.
Continue talking about your district and continue talking about New Hampshire, because the cost of living continues to increase, wages stay the same, which leads into a lot of other issues. It leads into poverty. It leads into being unhoused. It leads into, let's be frank, it leads into suicide. Because people cannot afford healthcare. They can't afford to live. They can't afford, one time, God forbid you get sick and you have to go into the hospital and you don't have insurance. How are you going? You're going to go into debt because this predatory healthcare system continues exactly that. I speak from personal experience. My mom is the prime example of that. Going into the hospital and spending a whole week in the hospital because she had double blood clots in both lungs caused by COVID, despite having the vaccines. It was $100,000 hospital bill. Luckily, the state of Missouri has Medicaid expansion, but we would not have had Medicaid expansion if people like me and my mom wouldn't have went out and voted for it. And the state has tried to undermine it numerous times, not just Missouri, other countries across other states across the country, they do not have that, especially in those rural areas. I'm thinking of southeast rural Kansas that got whacked with this economic crisis, and rural hospitals began to close, reproductive centers began to close. People literally died because of that lack of healthcare. Luckily, our governor has kind of come back, and she can only do what she can do. She can only do what the state allows her to do. There's a GOP supermajority in the state of Kansas. I grew up in Missouri, where, like I said, the voters, like my mom and myself, went out and we voted in favor of healthcare. We also became the first state to overturn a near total abortion ban. The governor at that time, there's a new governor, and he was the lieutenant governor at that time. And that Missouri was the first state to do a near total abortion ban, no exceptions for rape, no exceptions for anything, which exceptions are just, it shouldn't, this shouldn't even be a conversation, right? But Missouri was one of those first states to do it. He was already had the photo op ready. There was already cameras. He was excited to sign that, to strip millions of Missourians from their right to choose. I just went on a tangent, but feel free to dive in a little bit and talk more about that cost of living and the issues that continue to affect New Hampshire. You brought up one about the state doesn't have its own minimum wage; it goes off the federal. Just kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit, which is not, maybe it's a little bit unique to New Hampshire. So we don't have a state minimum, state income tax. We also don't have a sales tax.
Mm.
So our revenue sources are not very high in the state. The local governments, the town governments, the city governments, we have the amount they receive from the state is one of the lowest across the country. So what does a local government do in order to compensate for the fact that they don't have a lot of money? They increase property taxes. The only thing they can control is property taxes. So in my town of Exeter, just to give you an idea, there's a friend of mine, he's 77 years old. His house was appraised in the last decade, because it's every 10 years, the house is reappraised. And this last time it was a $57,000 house, because he lives in a manufactured home. So I think it was about $57,000. And he was paying property taxes, annual property taxes, about $1,500 on that. His house was reappraised in 2026. Now, mind you, he's 77 years old. These are his golden years. He's trying to survive on Social Security. He bought a modest home. He thought based on his Social Security, he would be able to survive pay for the mortgage, etc. He already has to supplement his income even before 2026, and so he was working as an Uber driver because he has health problems. He can't do a lot of walking, so he can sit and drive. So he's at 77, after a full life of working and saving, raising 4 children. He still has to work, not out of choice, but a necessity. This year, in 2026, his house was reappraised at $187,000. And property taxes have also gone up. So his property tax last year was $1,500. This year it's $4,800. His Social Security per month has gone up by $60. Just think about that. This is what we're doing to our senior citizens. It's unconscionable.
My mom is on SSI as well, so this has resonated with me very deeply. And
it's so cruel. We are not allowing our senior citizens to retire with dignity. All the time we're being told to, look this way, finding one vulnerable group that we're supposed to attack or hate or be upset about or look the other way. Our senior citizens, one of the most vulnerable populations, they are unable to afford to retire. Many of them are on Medicare, but they cannot afford the copays on their medicine. And then on top of it, if they need long-term care, additional support, they don't have it. It's really a terrible situation. So as I'm going across my state, and you asked me, what am I hearing from the senior citizens? Sometimes I'm hearing this heartbreaking, and I'm going to try not to cry. They say, I'm one payment away from homelessness. Tell me, Zachary, what is going on? This is the richest country in the world, and we do not allow our people to live with dignity, to work with dignity, to retire with dignity. And it's not because we don't have the resources, it's just an issue of priorities. We always seem to have enough to bomb people. We always seem to have enough to start a new war. We never have enough to feed and educate our children. We never have enough for our infrastructure. We never have enough for our senior citizens. We never have enough for healthcare, but we always have enough for, we have enough 20 billion to give to Argentina, 30 billion to give to Israel. We have, how much are we even spending on this war in Iran? It's not even, I know that the growing rate right now, people think it's about 1 to 2 billion, but that's actually not taking into effect. That's just actually just the tip of the iceberg. It's actually much more than that on a daily basis. So over the course of the war started February 28th. So how many days is it going on now? Almost 50 some days. It's not 50 billion or 100 billion. It's actually far more than that. And the consequences, and fiscally, it's such an irresponsible thing. And we never seem to have enough money. And of course, the death and destruction is a really important topic, but if we're just talking about money, yeah, we don't have the resources for our own people, but we apparently have a lot of money for out there. But that goes back to the big money in politics. Like if you go to my website, and if folks, I hope they will check out my website, karishmaforsenate.com, you'll see the very top of the list under our priorities is getting big money out of politics, because that is the root cause of almost all our problems. Why don't we have a universal health care? Because of the big money influencing our politicians. Why don't we have adequately funded public education? Big money influencing our politicians. Why don't we have, why the labor unions, why are they being weakened? Big money in politics. Why do we have this immense wealth transfer from the bottom to the top? Because of the big money in politics. Why are we going on to these endless wars over and over and over again? Big money in politics. Everything that you think doesn't make sense, the answer is big money in politics.
And asking Congress for billions of dollars for the Pentagon is beyond insane to me. This is also the same Pentagon that has failed the last 8 audits. That is insane to me.
It's
beyond insane. It's just
Yes.
literally inhumane.
Right. But Zachary, so you and I are talking about it, and this is what we have to, I mean, I'm hearing a lot more about this in 2026 than previous years, but we have to, everyone should be concerned, and everyone should say, this is insane. This is unacceptable. We should say it is unacceptable, unconscionable, and this has to stop. Absolutely. So approximately, we're spending about $1 trillion at the moment in the Pentagon budget. $1 trillion. Almost half of that goes to a handful of weapons manufacturers. The weapons manufacturers are, of course, publicly traded company, and the CEOs are making money, the Wall Street is making money, shareholders are making money. But do you know who else is making money? Members of Congress.
Congress.
They own, many of them own stocks in industries that they are supposed to regulate. In any other part of the world, in any other industry across the country, it would be considered insider trading. But Congress members know when to buy, know when to sell, and they're making money out of their positions of power.
These are also the same.
It's insane. Weapons manufacturers, for example, if you look up the top 20 Congress investors from Congress who are investing in the weapons manufacturers, of the top 20, 9 are Democrats, 11 are Republicans. It's a bipartisan failure.
These are also the same politicians that, you're talking about, the gun manufacturers and weapon manufacturers. These are the same politicians that every time there is a mass shooting across the country, they also profit from that. They see dollar signs on these children. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Excuse my language, but seriously.
No, go for it. That's how I think all day long. Like, I kid you not. Like, are we insane? Are we absolutely insane? What are we doing? That's the thing, Zachary. When I think, how can we expect them to care about the children of Palestine, the children of Lebanon, when they don't even care about the children of our own country, our own children? How can we do this? And it's insane. Sometimes it's so depressing, but that's why I'm running, because I was sitting there going, how can this be going on? How can we be pretending that we're sending people to Congress who are representing our values, who are representing our needs? and then being surprised that they're not. And then year after year, the housing crisis gets worse, and the childcare crisis gets worse, and the healthcare crisis gets worse. So I'm the face of the campaign, but behind me are several hundred people here in New Hampshire. We represent the nonprofit sector. We represent the peace movement. There are college students in our group. There are folks who are as old as in their 80s who are in our group. We are all so frustrated. So we decided it's not enough to vote for a Democrat, we should vote for the right Democrat. So I want to make it very clear, because the Democratic Party is so unpopular right now. So the Republican Party, the Donald Trump, for example, is so unpopular, rightfully so, absolutely rightfully so. And the Democratic Party is sometimes less popular than Donald Trump, or at the same popularity rating as Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a pedophile. Donald Trump is a war criminal, a thief, a liar. To have the same popularity rating as Donald Trump tells you there's something going on. But I have to be very clear. I am a progressive Democrat. It's the corporate Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and Chris Pappas that are basically controlled opposition. They're pretending to be opposition. They're taking away these extremely important positions. And how do I know they're controlled opposition? How should we all know they're controlled opposition? Because their top donors are also the same people who are donating to Donald Trump. They're all eating from the same plate, my friend. So they sometimes will come up with a few little buzzwords, some hollow statements about how angry they are and how they're fighting Donald Trump. Please, come on, guys, stop lying. And you know what? Get out of the way. That's enough.
It's beyond time to move past. Hold on. It's beyond time to move past these strongly worded letters and these strongly worded statements that are literally words on a paper, and it has your little name and it has your title and it has, Senate Minority Leader. Chuck, get the fuck out of the way. It's beyond time for you to move the fuck on. But
absolutely.
And there's a lot of others that need to go as well. And I do feel a little optimistic because we have candidates like you that are running. We have candidates like, here in Kansas, we have some really powerful U.S. Senate candidates that are running. Christy Davis, she's worked in farm labor. She's done a lot of organizing around farming, a lot of that. We have a really good governor candidate that's a current state senator, Cindy Holscher, that puts people over profit, and which is unheard of in the state of Kansas. But there's a lot of politicians here. Chris Kobach was our former governor who went and worked in the Donald Trump administration and was continuing the same bullshit that he did here in Kansas, just hidden more behind his religion, right? So, there's a lot. Like you said earlier, we have a lot of work to do. But
we have a lot of work to do. But 2026, come on, guys. Come on.
We shouldn't even be having these conversations. We shouldn't even be having this conversation.
We should not. We should not have to talk about big money in politics or briberies and pedophiles in the White House. We should not have to be able to say our president is a pedophile. That is a weird statement.
Knowing how they preach against that very well, right? And they talk about it, but neglect to look at themselves in the mirror and think, I have some skeletons in my closet too. I mean, we all have skeletons, right? But we're all not Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. And that's the thing. But that's a whole nother conversation. But let's jump in and talk about some education. So they're trying to dismantle the Department of Education.
Yes.
Which was created by Congress. And we know that executive orders do not equate to law because the president cannot make laws. That is Congress. That's why we have three branches of government. Ding ding. It's like I paid attention in government class, right? But I also had a really good teacher too. And my mom has also taught me a lot, and my grandfather and my grandmother, they taught me a lot about education. Education is very important to me. So obviously public education, I'm a graduate of public education. I struggled in school. I'm undiagnosed ADHD, but I have a lot of other mental health diagnoses. I struggled in school with math and just practically a lot of things, but I always paid attention to government and I paid attention to science. Those were my two like strongest subjects, that and English. I'm a really good writer, a really good talker, public speaking is my thing. I've done it for 16 years. But oh, and lunch. Don't forget to tell me where the food is because I'm always down
Always
for
the best.
food.
Best.
Speaking of which, I got to tell you this. My mom made some bomb ass spaghetti last night, y'all, and
Oh, you have to tell me later what it is.
she hasn't been able to cook for a while because she was diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer last year. Luckily, like I said, she has that Medicaid expansion and it's covering her cancer drugs. But without that, she probably wouldn't be alive right now. Like let's be real, because the cost of healthcare is so astronomically high. But she made some bomb ass spaghetti last night, and whatever I tell you, it's already gone. I was like, oh, this is gonna last us, like 2, 3, 4 days.
I have a weakness for spaghetti. I don't know what it is about spaghetti.
Whatever I tell you, that it's literally less than 24 hours after she made it. We had leftover like galore. Me and her already devoured it. It's already gone. I did it in between Zoom calls. I was like, oh shit, Karishma's interview's coming up. I gotta eat the spaghetti. Like, I do add a little bit of a comedic approach to this. Let's get back down into it. So, Department of Education. I'm a product of public education. Was it the best? No. I grew up in a Kansas City school district, and my class of 2015, yes, I've been out of school for 10 years. That's insane to me to say, but almost 11 years. My class was the first one that went through a restructure, and it went from a non-accredited district. It has its full accreditation now because they've done a lot of work, to an accredited district. My class was the first one to go through a merger. And my mom is a big supporter of public education. She wanted a better life for me than what she's had. My mom's a survivor of sexual abuse. My mom is a survivor of domestic violence. She's had a very, very rough life, needless to say, for lack of better terms, but it's made her who she is now. And she encourages me, and I hope she understands that she created a monster, because I'm ready to tackle capitalism by like literally everything and just give it a total overhaul. Move the Overton window to the left, which is why we need the Department of Education, because people in my comments, they need the Department of Education to continue existing, to say the least. And it's legit. Donald Trump did state, I love the poorly educated. Oh, you couldn't be any more correct about that, because these people in my comments don't even understand the basic human right of abortion access. They don't understand the right to due process as guaranteed by the 5th and the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. But yet, you want to sit here and tell me that my right to exist as a queer individual, my mom's right to exist as a disabled individual, that we're less than because of who we are? That's not democracy. That's called fascism rooting and ingraining into our society. So you got me started. It's like I'm really excited.
Let it out. It's okay, Zachary.
But
let it out, because it's so frustrating.
I'm like it's literally
so keep going.
Sitting here talking to you is giving me so much energy. But the Department of Education.
Yes.
I've said this 3 times. You realize that I've said Department of Education 3 times.
That has been under attack since we integrated. This is actually, the attack on public education is because of racism.
Yep.
This started, folks did not want to see Black children and white children in the same school. Many people were not like that, but there were, unfortunately, a lot who did not want to see integration. So the attack on public education has been going on for a long time. At the moment, it's being completely dismantled. How can we not educate the next generation of Americans? How can we think that is an option? How can we think that this is going to lead to a greater country? We are not taking care of our next generation of Americans. That is a real national security threat. These are the kids who are going to grow up to be police officers, physicians, scientists, politicians, lawyers, custodians, everything. And yet we are basically not allowing them the ability to grow up to be who they want to be. It's so short-sighted. It is so evil. It is so unpatriotic.
Mhm. Exactly. And it does not put America first,
It's
like they
not
claim.
America first.
It's not America first.
This is a
Um,
prime example of money over people.
mhm.
So there's the racism factor, but also the fact that a lot of folks think that taxes should not go towards public education.
And it absolutely should, and not these voucher
Absolutely should.
scams,
Yes.
which that's exactly what they are. And we need to call them a voucher scam because it caters to the 1%. It caters to that literal top 1% that, and literally, these vouchers are not going to do well in rural America. They're not going to do well at all.
It's another way to
And
poke holes. Like Zachary, this is what we've been seeing since the Reagan era.
mhm,
You start to demonize federal agencies, you start to demonize state agencies, and then what you do is you take the money away from those agencies, and then they cannot provide the services that they need. And then the answer is, look, we told you those agencies don't work, and look, they're not working. But it's because you've taken the money away. So you're allowing it to kind of implode or become a skeleton version of itself, and then saying, see, we told you it doesn't work, therefore let's get rid of it. The Department of Education or public education in general, they're basically gutting it for the last 50 years. We are not adequately funding it. We're not giving the teachers the respect they deserve. We are not giving the children the respect they deserve. Many of the schools here in New Hampshire, the public school buildings are 60, 70 years old. They're crumbling.
mhm, mhm.
Bathroom doors don't work. Faucets don't work.
Which that leads to like a whole nother level of issues with the bathroom stalls not locking. That leads to a lot of other issues, which we'll dive into on a later conversation.
But
But
yeah, but it's almost
it's
like, are you kidding me? The richest country in the world,
mhm,
and these kids are saying our clubs are being cut, our extracurricular activities are being cut, our some of these subject areas are being cut, or we are asking the teachers to take on additional responsibility because we're cutting staff members. This is just short-sighted. It is just un-American. Yeah.
mhm. Exactly, and that's exactly what it is. Speaking of which, let's dive in and talk about, Gaza, Cuba, Lebanon, Congo, Sudan,
Hmm.
Ukraine. It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Um, and a lot of that is rooted in the money and politics because you have APAC, you have a lot of these influences, and I find it ironic that we can fund forever wars, but my mom shouldn't have access to food. My mom shouldn't have access to her health care or anybody else for that matter. I always use my mom as reference. I talk about her on every episode, but because it's seeing the systems gaslight her for so many years, which is what led to her cancer diagnosis because
Yeah.
she was gaslit by doctors saying, "Oh, you're just going through, your menstrual cycle." No, it's deeper than that. This isn't fucking normal. What she's experiencing and what we're seeing. You're not in our home, respectively. You don't know what's going on here behind closed doors. And they neglected to do any scans because they didn't see them as medically necessary. They didn't see that. They would have caught this and it would have been a stage 3. You don't just go automatically to stage 3 cervical cancer or any type of cancer. This builds up over time. This isn't something that just happens. Speaking of which, genocide, right? And this is something that's been going on for many, many years in Congo and Sudan and Ukraine and Gaza and Cuba and Lebanon, Venezuela. Let's talk about some foreign affairs and let's think about that and think about the influence that money has in those politics to inform a lot of those decisions because like you said, we're one of the richest countries in the entire world. We can't afford healthcare, but we can afford to send bombs overseas and weapons and even their own healthcare. They have better healthcare systems than we do. And guess who's funding that? But you want to say that, oh, we don't have healthcare for Americans here. That's not America first. Oh,
So let's put some
it's a
numbers to
lot.
that. Yeah, as a scientist, I like to use numbers a little bit. You mentioned, you touched on the fact that um, many people don't have access to adequate amounts of food. 42 million Americans receive SNAP benefits. 42 million Americans receive SNAP benefits. SNAP benefits can be as little as $6 a day per person, or it can be about even as low as $24 a month. And this is the game our government plays. Donald Trump was telling us benefits are going to be on, SNAP benefits are not going to be paid. He used it like a political football. These are people's lives. There was a time in my life, in my family's life, when we did not have food in our cupboard. And that is insane. 42 million Americans do not have adequate amounts of food. And there are many more who actually should qualify, but they're just missed that mark because you have to be so desperate, in such a desperate situation in order to be able to access SNAP benefits. And a lot of folks tell me it is so, the hurdles they have to go through are so, there's so many hurdles, and sometimes they feel people are not treated, they're not treated well, so they actually step back. They would rather starve than actually ask for support. And then, of course, millions of Americans don't have access to healthcare. Now let's talk about the foreign policy, because they're absolutely directly related. We have money. If we are spending our money on bombs, we don't have enough money for our people. If we are spending billions of dollars on Iran and destroying Gaza, we do not have money to feed our people, give access to healthcare to our people, to educate our children. So if folks out there want to not think about foreign policy, you should. If you look around yourself and you see Americans are suffering from paycheck to paycheck, you should absolutely realize that that money is going off in some other place. Well, two ways that we're losing the money. One is on war machine, the other is tax cuts to billionaires. All right, so let's talk about the foreign policy part of it. And we'll touch on the regressive tax code later. You brought up so many conflicts. Isn't that amazing? Why are we in so many conflicts? Because it's so profitable for so many people. Not for us, not for you, not for your mom, not for me, not for my family or people in New Hampshire, but a lot of people are making good amount of money. So right now in Palestine, Gaza, and of course the West Bank, we saw death and destruction for a long time now. This is not a new conflict. This has been going on for 100 years if you start to look at it from the 1917 period, or at least the last 50 years if you think of it from the Nakba, or if you want to start from 2023, that's enough. However you want to look at it, it's going on for a long time. What are we doing? So just look at what's going on in Gaza over the last few years. We have spent so much money just destroying that place, killing so many people. So Gaza had about 2.1 million people before October 7, 2023. Israel might know how many people they've killed. We are told, what is it, 70, 80,000, but the estimate is about maybe 300,000 people have been killed. But what is the folks who have survived? They're barely surviving and they're actually slowly dying. So when you drop those bombs, you are, of course, directly killing people who are getting hit by those missiles or by the bombs right away, right? They're just, those are called direct deaths. But there's something called indirect deaths, because when you're destroying an infrastructure, the housing, the roads, the market, the farmland, you are causing people to die over time because you are impacting their lifestyle, or or people are becoming displaced and refugees and they're living in these tents without access to high quality food or any food or pure water or any water. So those are slow deaths. It's morally reprehensible what we have been doing in Gaza and now what we're doing in the West Bank and Lebanon and Iran. But it's also fiscally irresponsible because we just talked about it. Money there means less money for us, but it's also illegal. The federal laws are very clear. We cannot send weapons to any foreign entity that is violating human rights. And Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, they're violating human rights. So we, our Congress members, are basically disregarding the Leahy Law as well as the Foreign Assistance Act by sending weapons of mass destruction to Israel while they are using it to violate human rights. Morally reprehensible, fiscally irresponsible, and just plain illegal. Yes, it's just unconscionable. But
I need you to come run for office in Kansas, okay? I was gonna let you know that now, or I need to move to New Hampshire because I we need
yes,
your
you're coming to New
voice.
Hampshire. Okay, when are you moving? Because we need you, Zachary. Actually, people across the country move to New Hampshire for the next few months. Our primary September 8th. All hands on deck. All hands on deck, guys. New Hampshire is a tiny state, 1.4 million people. Geographically, we're not very big. And a progressive can absolutely win New Hampshire because
Yeah.
remember we have the first in the nation primary, although that's like under attack by the DNC at the moment. We have first in the nation primary. So in 2016, Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire, the presidential primary, and in 2020 he also won New Hampshire. Later on, when the other states got involved, they messed up. They promoted Hillary, and then later they promoted Biden. When Bernie was in New Hampshire, he got the Republicans to come out, the independents to come out, and of course the Democrats to come out. New Hampshire is, we are a very educated state. We are political junkies because we have elections going on all the time and we're very engaged. So if we are, basically we can absolutely have a progressive movement right here in New Hampshire. And so folks across the country, just come on in. And if you can't come over and help us, then at least donate or help spread the word. Follow us on social media. My handle is Karishma for Senate. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I need support from across the country. We are fighting a war machine. Chris Pappas represents the worst of our government. He is somebody who can be bought, and he has been bought for 7.5 years. And we cannot send him to Senate. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also another reason we need term limits for people like him.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that. What are your thoughts on uncapping the House? So think about this for a second. So a single representative can represent hundreds of thousands of
700,000
constituents.
about, yes.
Like, think about that. That is not democracy, and that is not representing the people.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on uncapping the House?
Yes. So at the moment, let's get big money out of politics because just by increasing the number of representatives, you're not necessarily getting to the root cause of the problem right now. So let's get money out of politics, and then we can talk about whether the current House needs to be expanded or not.
So you would say short term is get money out of politics, long term is uncapping the House. Is that like a fair
I don't know if where are you going to put them?
That's a good point.
It's a very tight chamber. So,
that's a good.
And when they have the State of the Union, where do you see putting the other people? Where they're on the floors, standing on the aisle, video call, conference call in from another room. So yeah.
Well, you know what?
Logistically, it sounds like it's a.
Here's the thing. They expect children to hide under desks during an active shooter.
You just put them people sitting on each other's laps.
Sorry, I had to add that in there because it's real. These are very real concerns. Are very real things. Like, oh my God, I can't even. My last thing is, from a scientist standpoint, I think you mentioned about, scientists and like doing like their research. And one of the things that I think about whenever I think of science, I think of climate change. I think of environment because it does affect moods. It affects disabilities. It affects literally our entire lives. 1 second, and I don't know if this is just the Midwest. I think it's going on across the entire country, but it seems like this year is the worst year for allergies. And me and my mom have been dealing with like this sneezing and like these upper respiratory infections, like stop because one
Mm.
second, and it's one of those things like if you don't like the weather, wait a minute because it's going to change. So we've kind of gotten adapted to it as best as you can. But 1 minute, you don't know if you want your window open because, oh, it's nice and beautiful outside. The next, like, literal, like 2 hours, it can be freezing or it can be extremely hot. These are the effects that we, the humans, have done to our planet. So thinking about climate change and thinking about there's another thing in environment that I want to highlight is there is an astronomical number of deaths of scientists that hold like critical information about our planet, about our environment. They've either wound up dead mysteriously or they've gone missing. It's something that not a lot of attention is being put on. But thinking about the environment, what are your thoughts on this from like your background and from your standpoint in like science? I know it was more like honed in on like research, but I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are about like environment wise and like climate change and et cetera. Because obviously fossil fuels continue to impact us directly.
So today's April 22nd,
Yep, that's Earth Day.
Earth Day. Yes. Every day should be Earth Day, but at least let's
Yes.
let's talk about the environment today. So, this is our home. This is the only planet where we can survive. There is no planet B. And what are we doing? We are allowing our planet to be destroyed. We should be the steward of our planet. We should be responsible not just for ourselves and our future generations, but also the marine life, the flora and fauna. And what are we doing? We're not taking care of it because of profit margin, not as individuals, but
Mhm.
corporations and industry. And the what is the biggest polluter, by the way?
Biggest polluter, and obviously there's a lot going on, but it's like the fossil fuels, and then you also have these AI data centers. You also
No, but
have
there's
all
one
this
entity that
contributing.
is the largest polluter in the world, the US military.
Hmm.
So last night
Oh,
we watched the documentary Earth's Greatest Enemy. It is a documentary by Abby Martin. It is really a great documentary to watch. It is very depressing, but it's necessary. We need to understand what we're doing. So I talked a little bit, or you and I touched a little bit about what we're doing in Palestine, for example, and other places. But when those bombs are being dropped, so yes, we are having the direct death and indirect death, but we're also contaminating the soil, the water, the air with heavy metals. So pesticides, herbicides, volatile organic compounds, PFAS, radiation, these are all contaminating the water, the soil, the air for generations to come. Whether it's in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, Sudan, Congo. I mean, it's unconscionable what we're doing. Many of these places, when they are looking at hair samples of the children, they are contaminated with heavy metal. We're actually losing a lot of children in utero, fetuses in utero, because there's congenital abnormality, so they're not able to grow. So in various parts of the world where there's been a lot of warfare, we see higher amounts of miscarriage or children being born with congenital deformities, including congenital heart defects. And if we think about Agent Orange, that was what now, 3 generations ago, and still children are being born in Laos and Cambodia that have extreme congenital deformities. We are also seeing a rise in cancer in these locations. Interestingly, in the United States, areas where we have had military bases, we're also seeing high amounts of PFAS and other contamination. So folks who are staying on these bases military personnel as well as their family members, they're also seeing high amounts of birth defects or miscarriages or cancer down the road.
Mhm. Mhm. And that ain't right. That ain't
That
right.
ain't right.
That ain't
That's
right.
it. That ain't right.
Healthcare justice is, if I was to ever run for office, I'm not like a one issue like person. Like I focus on a lot of different things. But if I had to focus on one thing, I think it would be healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that is so incredibly important to me. And like I said, I'm not a one
Yeah.
issue voter. I'm not a one issue person, but I can absolutely hone in on healthcare because there's a
Yeah.
lot
And
that goes into
healthcare,
that.
right, Zachary. And then healthcare is not just that somebody has an illness and they need to access care. Healthcare should also be high quality food, safe drinking water, as well as access to health to care if they have any kind of illness or disease.
Mhm.
But food, I mean, if our food is contaminated, if the oysters that we're eating is contaminated, if the fish that we're eating has high levels of mercury, if the water we're drinking has PFAS in it, like, what are we doing to ourselves? We're absolutely need to care for ourselves. And then, of course, this is one of the reasons cancer rates are high nowadays and other types of illnesses because we are contaminating our groundwater. And this was in the movie, they talked about Hawaii because there's been some jet fuel actually
Mhm.
leaked into the groundwater. So people were drinking contaminated water. They also talked about Okinawa because of the military base in Okinawa, Japan, about the impact on their environment. So military is, of course, one factor. And of course, data centers, you touched on it a little bit. Data centers, we got to stop building data centers flat out, period. Got to stop for many reasons. One is the AI technology is extremely powerful and we need to understand it and regulate it and move slowly. It is really going to be a wonderful piece of technology, but it's also can be a really terrible piece of technology. So one thing is we can never use AI for warfare or mass surveillance. No, absolutely not. And we are now seeing that it's being used for warfare and mass surveillance. This has to stop. The other part is the data centers. The data centers are coming out across the country, and wherever they are actually creating the data centers, they are big guzzlers of electricity, and they're also big guzzlers of water. So as they're pulling groundwater away to cool down these machines, they're actually emptying out the aquifers, but also as they are using up a lot of electricity, it's raising the rate of the surrounding region because the data centers pay a lower effective rate, electric rate than the neighbors, the people who live in that area. So from an environmental perspective, from a fiscal perspective, from also trying to say, let's understand this technology because it can be both cause immense suffering, but it can also cause a lot of scientific breakthroughs. Let's slow down, let's understand it, and let's move slowly. Even the folks who are the top AI scientists have told us, slow down. We do not, this is a monster that we've created. Let's understand this monster before we let it out. So from an environmental perspective, yes, it's also an immense problem.
And it's
So,
all connected.
and the fossil fuel, we didn't even touch on it. I just went on about the military industrial complex and its effect on the environment. But yes, the fossil fuel burning. We gotta stop this. What are we doing? We have to invest in wind, solar, other forms of renewable energy because those wind and solar are right here at home. It does not have to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's like should be a no-brainer that we should invest in renewable energy. And renewable energy will be much cheaper than fossil fuel and other forms of energy, nuclear or fossil fuel. So from a cost-effective purpose and from a environmental purpose, as well as maybe we don't have to constantly be in war to have access to oil, we really should be considering investing in renewable energy.
What a concept, right?
what a this is the annoying thing, isn't it, Zachary? Like you realize, like these none of the things that we're talking about are should require a thought. These are should be the standard. Let's protect the environment. Let's feed our people. Let's give them access to healthcare. Educate our children. Like these should be just standard policies. In every case, we're seeing profit is driving force and not the people,
Mhm.
then not the planet.
Exactly. Whew. This has been quite the conversation, and I'm here for it. But we are at time. I'm gonna hop into another one here
When
in
are you
just
moving to
a
New
little bit.
Hampshire? When are you moving? You promised. I swear, audience. No, I'm just kidding. Zachary promised if I give him an interview, he's moving to New Hampshire to help get everyone riled up because we need you guys here. Okay, or at least help us from far away. Yes.
We will help you amplify as best as we can over the next 4 months. And I want to say that we don't do candidate endorsements like literally at all. And because it gets really ugly and it gets really, it shows favoritism. And yeah, I don't like that whole like going back and forth. But we do candidate recommendations, and my list is coming out. Obviously, you're literally top of that list, but um, we're doing this candidate series because I believe that one, we need to get money out of politics. We need to get these corrupt politicians that are bought and paid for out of Congress, out of Senate, out of state legislatures, out of city councils, and it's going to take all of us to understand that this isn't this is not democracy. This is not integrity. We need to bring integrity into politics. I was corrected the other day whenever I interviewed um, a Black woman that is running in California. And she stated, because, I brought up about, bringing integrity back to politics. And she said, have we really ever had it? She said, me as a Black woman, I don't feel that. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. So let's bring integrity to politics because politics gets really ugly really fast. It shows favoritism, which again is like that money in politics. If you raise more money, oh, you're seen as, or, if you raise less money than your opponent, then you're seen as, oh, your opinions don't matter because all they see is this dollar sign. And literally every time I go outside, all I am is a walking dollar sign, as any of us are, because that's what we are to them. We're profit. And it's so deeply disturbing. And this isn't something that just happened, yesterday. This is something that's been going on for like decades, like years and years and years, centuries. This is not something that's brand new. But other than that, I want to say thank you for one, having this candid conversation with me, this unedited, this raw conversation, because I believe in that on this podcast. I want to bring the human approach and the human side and the humanist side to politics, but also not just politics, because you're a human being. You have a story, you have experiences. Your platform isn't just a platform, it's personal. And people can run on a platform and say, oh, yeah, I care about getting money out of politics. Well, what are you doing to get us to that point? The word progressive, the word, the word progressive, the word like, change, or the words change agent. Damn, it's been a long day. Um, it gets thrown around a lot, but their policies, whenever they get elected into office, it's like their platform just goes out the window, and they have these lobby groups come in and talk to them. You have APAC that literally runs rampant in Congress, like you said, like over 90 something percent receive that, and it's disturbing to say the least, for the lack of better terms. But again, thank you for coming on the podcast. How can people contribute to your campaign and uplift the work that you are doing, not only in New Hampshire, but just to being this badass human being that is running and likes to have conversations like this? Because I know it's right up your alley. I've watched some videos of you speaking at like the like No King protests. I have seen those. I've seen what you talk about, and that's why I wanted to reach out. Not only were you recommended, because every candidate I'm talking to is recommended, but it's like this conversation needed to happen. This is something that I've been wanting to do, and I wanted to reach out a lot sooner, but here we are. But anyway, how can people contribute to your campaign and follow you on social media and uplift the work that you are doing?
Thank you so much. So, yes, so the website is karishmaforsenate.com. Check it out. I'm very clear. I don't bullshit. I'm just a regular person trying to save the world for my children and for the next generation. We have to just stop this death and destruction. My list of priorities is very clearly laid out. It's called Our Priorities because we worked on it as a team of about 100 people over the course of 3 months. This was not a DC consultant fed priority list. Our oldest member of our group was in her 80s, and the youngest were 2 high school students, and 3 months of work. So we have laid it out very clearly. We are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So please follow us. That is really one great way to help us, and then promote us. Like, for example, this is a great opportunity to reach other voters, other folks across the country. So please, if there are, journalists or influencers who are watching, let's talk about these very important issues. Because the media, the mainstream media, is all under the control of the oligarchy. It's ABC, CBS, they're all falling under the oligarchy, right? CNN. So what do we have left? Each other. Everyone who's listening, is our path to victory, is our path to taking over the Congress and making sure that we put in courage candidates who answer to the people, who will impeach Trump, overturn Citizens United, pass Medicare for all, and stop wasting billions of dollars of weapons transfers to Israel and other entities to kill people, and instead use the money to feed and educate our own children. But we need to work as a team because the powerful forces of money are against us. So they can have money, but we need the people. And if the people don't rise up, you can't complain. It's a really critical issue, all hands on deck. So follow us, tell others, and also if you're able to donate, whatever it is, $5, $10, hopefully thousands of dollars. And so should be a donate button on our website. So thank you. Thank you, Zachary. Thank you to everyone who listens to this podcast. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And take care of yourself. Take care of yourself out there. I look forward to continuing watching your campaign, and let's do a follow-up after your primary and such, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
Thank you.
I look forward to continuing that conversation, and I look forward to seeing you out there. So
thank you, Zachary.
absolutely. Thank you.